We've seen the tipping point. There are many more market opportunities, especially from institutional buyers for local produce. We have some great partners here, both at Ohio University and Hocking College, as well as a lot of the locally owned restaurants. If we can figure out how to take the bounty of fresh produce that's grown in this region and extend the season through flash freezing, that's a big plus. Lots of farmers, I think, initially were more interested in creating bottled products, but now with some of these institutional buyers or restaurant buyers being interested in frozen food, especially in a sort of food service quantity packaging, we feel that it's a real opportunity for us at AceNet to generate new tenants, generate and diversify our revenue streams, and then really meet all the needs within the value chain. We want to make sure that the market partners are finding the types of product lines that they need, and the farmers and manufacturers are getting the best technology in place, the best infrastructure in place to be able to take advantage of that. I think the freezing technology really provides a lot of options for farmers. Number one, a lot of the market consumption right now is also focused on both local but also healthier food. So if you look at the nutrient content, probably flash freezing that strawberry is still going to be better than thermal processing that strawberry maybe into, even if it's a no sugar or low sugar jam, a flash frozen strawberry is still probably going to have more nutrient quality than something that's been heat processed, so to speak. So that's a plus. I think for farmers, every growing season is different. So there's always so much changeability as to when harvest is going to be or how much production there's going to be. We've been very fortunate within our food system that many of the area farmers, certainly a lot of the certified organic growers, they have great restaurant markets for fresh, but you always have grade B produce. So how can you utilize some of the stuff that might not be as marketable to some of the retail or restaurant buyers if you can do some sort of value add? And freezing oftentimes is much more easy to do than some of the thermal processing in terms of the amount of labor. I don't want to diminish the amount of work it takes, but it might be a little more time efficient than thermal processing products. And the other beauty is you can flash freeze a bunch of stuff and then turn it into a bottled product later as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's always exciting, working within our facility is you just see from spring into late fall the huge range of produce coming through. So obviously at the beginning of the season, we see asparagus, we see a lot of different types of berries, from strawberries to blueberries to raspberries. We've had some folks doing some slicing and dicing of apples for freezing. Obviously some of the other stone fruit, peaches have been utilized. And then veggie-wise, it's just pretty much everything. By the end of the season, we had a lot of folks doing squash, pumpkins. So a lot of the stuff is pulped and then frozen in different size packs and gets reutilized, typically in some kind of food service way. So we see more people increasing their acreage for production. The Chester Hill Produce Auction, operated by one of our sister nonprofit partners, Rural Action, is starting to really grow. So I think produce, figuring out not just season extension through high tunnels and greenhouses, but looking at some of this newer technology in our facility is going to be a major push for us. We're still in the early stages of figuring out what's the appropriate equipment, because it's not just the blast chillers or the quick cool equipment. It's also how do you, what vegetables, what fruit, do you want to process, does it make more sense to do berries? Does it make more sense to do, other fresh cut vegetables that then are vacuum packed and frozen? Yeah, and I think, the Casa is a great example because we have such a long history as a restaurant and have always used fresh produce in our prep kitchen within the restaurant. So we just have a lot of experience working with raw product. For Casa to be able to prep a lot of this stuff and then have it as a frozen food sort of ingredient that can be turned into soups or salsas. I mean, we actually do a lot of salsa varieties with squash kind of as a base. Usually, the chipotle pumpkin salsa, or you name it. I mean, we're always at Casa experimenting with new recipes. I think, when you look at some of the larger institutional buyers like schools, especially in this region where we just grow so many tomatoes, to be able to turn that into a kind of base tomato product that then gets turned into anything imaginable, from pasta sauce to bruschettas to salsas, is a win-win, because you've got a little bit of a raw ingredient pre-processed and ready to be handled in a food service kind of context. A lot of food service buyers are buying frozen food from their prime vendors anyway, so it's a familiar ingredient that they're used to handling in their kitchens. Right, and I think nationally this is where many programs like AceNet are headed. How do we figure out how to accommodate fresh produce through the whole cycle? So it's coming in, washing, staging, doing some pre-processing, whether we're dealing a lot of times with fresh produce that's going to get turned into applesauce or jams or jellies or that sort of thing. You really need to think about your flow, your footprint, coming in with a lot of fresh ingredients as opposed to getting things in 55-gallon drums or number 10 cans, are vastly different. So storage needs are immense. If it's fresh produce, you have to have good walk-in cooler space. Even if you're turning inventory quickly, you're getting we've had so much come in at the peak of the season. You need some sort of temperature controlled, climate controlled space to keep that produce cooled down before it moves into the next stage for processing. And then if you turn a lot of finished product into frozen food, you're going to have a lot of walk-in freezer space as that inventory is either moved out and distributed or diminishes as it gets used over time. So I think any partners who are thinking about developing these types of facilities where you're going to be running through a lot of fresh produce, a lot more thought has to be given to the square footage needs for the whole cycle of the product flow. And you can never have enough storage. Warehouse space, cooler, and walk-in freezer space is really important. We often say that you need 3 times the amount of storage to production space. And even that might be an estimate that doesn't work if you're exclusively working with produce. You might need even additional space. So having some good partners at the table, if there's produce distributors who are already operating within your regions or in your communities, I think those, that expertise to be able to tap into is also essential. Really doing a good survey of what the assets are. And certainly in urban centers, you're going to have produce terminals. You're probably going to have cold and freezer storage warehouse businesses already in the area. So they might be part of the network. Do you have to build that new infrastructure yourself, or is there already existing infrastructure in place that just can be more well networked, especially for newer entrepreneurs.